We root for the underdog in every sport, except golf. Jack Fleck was the underdog who upset Ben Hogan in a playoff for the 1955 U.S. Open. Jack believes that the world of golf has never forgiven him for his brilliant victory. Find out why on Golf Talk Live. The following is an encore presentation of Golf Talk Live. When Francis Ouimet won the 1913 U.S. Open in a playoff over Harry Vardon and Ted Ray, no one was angry at Ouimet for beating the two best players in the world. When Willie McFarland beat Bobby Jones in a 36-hole playoff for the 1925 U.S. Open title, everyone hailed Jones as a great sportsman and McFarland as a great giant killer. When Jones lost another 36-hole playoff for the U.S. Open in 1928, this time by one stroke to Johnny Farrell, the world of golf applauded the birdie-birdie finish of the playoff achieved by both players. When Jack Fleck beat Ben Hogan in their playoff for the championship in 1955 at the Olympic Club, it seemed the only one who wasn't angry at Fleck was Hogan. Hogan pointed out that the setup of Olympic was his favorite for determining the best player in the field. He also noted that of the 7 rounds shot in the 60s that week, 3 of those rounds were shot by Fleck, and no other player in the field had done it more than once. Hogan himself had not broken 70 in his 5 rounds at Olympic, which of course included the playoff. Fleck's clubs were Hogan clubs, and on the eve of the championship, Fleck received the wedges to the set that he had been waiting for. The wedges were delivered to Fleck in time for the Open by hand, the hand of Ben Hogan. Jack Fleck lives at a golf course he owns in Arkansas called A Little Bit of Heaven, and he'll tell you that golf has been the blessing that has given him his life. The world of golf will never forget his most brilliant moment in the sun. The San Francisco sky offered slivered shafts of light as Jack was being crowned as a major champion. And from where Jack Fleck stood with the trophy that will forever bear his name, he knew he had created his own little bit of heaven right here on Earth. Welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm Peter Kessler. It is a great pleasure to welcome back to our show U.S. Open champion, Jack Fleck. Great to have you here, my friend.
Nice to be here, Peter.
You know, it's funny. Every time I have the opportunity to speak with you or see you, you always tell me how difficult you are to get along with. Why do you feel that way about yourself?
Well, Peter, I mentioned that to you, but that was only sort of maybe some of the press, the media. But as far as the public people, I love the people. I love all the golfers. I get along with old Joe Schmo, as you might say, the higher handicap. I have a lot of friends that I get along with real well in the golf business, but a lot of times some of the things have been annoying to me, the way they placed it in the media and how they wrote about the playoff in San Francisco.
Have you gotten the sense over time that the public and people who love the game love what you did when you beat Ben Hogan because it was great golf and that week the best player won?
Well, there's a lot of people who have come up over the many years, 44 years, Peter, when I was playing on a regular tour, senior tour, that they were there and they watched it. And many people really praised me for how I played well, and I felt that they really liked how I did play. Actually, Ben was always very nice to me. I know a couple of the old-time pros that are long gone thought that he might have hated me because I won and depriving him of the 5th Open Championship. But Ben was not that type of a man. He was always very nice to me. And as far as the public and the gallery, you know, I had a feeling when I played that playoff, just as plain as me today, that I had a feeling that the public is for an underdog, golfers. So a lot of them thought they were all rooting for Ben, and they may have been, but it went through my mind that they might have been rooting for an underdog because the gallery was very nice in the playoff.
Let's set the public aside for the moment and talk about somebody who loved you no matter what you did, and that's your mom. When you were still a teenager and before you signed up for the Navy in World War II, what was her dream for you? What did she want you to be when you grew up?
Well, I don't think my parents thought I would ever be in golf, Peter, I'll say that. But my mother had a great effect on me because my older brothers, they did the smoking and things, and my mother used to always tell me, oh, you'll be just like your brothers. And I think she used reverse psychology on me because I never did smoke at all, ever. And I think it had a bearing on my looking forward to doing something in life back in that Depression days. You remember it was really bad. My mother and father really gave their life for us 5 children and taking care of us and rearing us.
Tell me about your making it home before she died.
Well, Peter, I was fortunate that we just returned from southern France invasion back to Bizerte, North Africa. And I had a notice as soon as I arrived that from the American Red Cross to come home as soon as possible. It was an emergency. My mother was in bad health and may not live very long. But they had a Army returning airplanes empty going back, but for some reason they wouldn't let Navy personnel. So I went back on US General Meigs and in New York and got on a plane, and I got home and I got to see her. She recognized me and we talked very softly, and she passed away 2 hours later.
What do you suppose she would think about what you made of your life?
Well, I think Mom would have really been happy and thrilled, just like my father, although they didn't know and follow golf very well, other than when I was a caddy, could bring home a little money and help out. And of course, then later when I went as an assistant golf professional in Des Moines, I used to send money back home and help out my folks rearing the rest of the children.
Tell me your dad's reaction once he understood golf and was waiting at the airport for you when you returned home in 1955 as the US Open champion.
Well, when I returned home, Peter, they had a big welcoming at the Mount Joy Airport and a big stage and all the dignitaries, the governor and all the politicians and the crowds, and it was a tremendous welcoming. And as a matter of fact, when I was holding Craig, 5-year-old, in my arm, I wept as I thanked God for the power and strength to compete, and all the people and the fans and all my friends back in my hometown. And when it was all through off the stage and off the podium down to my dad was there and he was crying, I thought you forgot me. And that would never have been. Never forget my father.
What did he go on to say after that?
Well, he just hugged me and said what a wonderful thing. And he also said that I hope that you will be able to handle all of this publicity and all the things that transpired after winning the Open.
How did you sense how proud he was, given that our sense is that he wasn't a particularly chatty guy?
Well, my father was not that, but he was a very ardent person and taking care of his family and rearing his family. We had discipline, Peter. We had many whippings. They can't do that today. Even the principal in elementary school, we call her the fastest left hand in Iowa. boy, those older kids, if they were out of line, bang, they'd have it, face red with that left hand, would be so fast. But my father worked very hard, and they looked out after us children and reared us with a very strict discipline and hard work. You had to all work in those days, and we all did. And it was rewarding, really, in a way, in the long run. Like Ben Hogan says, he didn't think a lot of the people would be able to handle these things that they did in the Depression.
Did your son Craig ever thank you for the fact that cooler heads prevailed when you had decided that you would name your first son Sneed Hogan Fleck?
Well, his mother wouldn't allow that, and I think that was a very choice decision to rule it out. Although Craig was named after Craig Wood, you know, he was a great champion too, and his middle name was after his stepfather.
That has a better ring to it than the Sneed Hogan Fleck, which you love. We'll take a little break, Jack. We'll come back and pick this up.
Very good.
Please stay with us.
Romantic golf story since Francis Ouimet helped put the game on the map more than 40 years ago when he defeated Barton and Ray. The Olympic Country Club at San Francisco with more than 15,000 jamming around for the last act of the U.S. Open. Now the air is electric with excitement. Bantam Ben Hogan hits his approach to the final green, and it looks as if he's about to become the first man ever to win the big crown a fifth time. Hogan carefully studies his putt. Now he strokes it, and the ball slides just below the hole. It leaves him a simple little tap for a 4 that finishes a strong last round of par 70. That gives Hogan a score of 287, and it appears that he has clinched the Open Championship for the fifth time in a glorious career. Only one man has a chance to overtake little Ben, and that chance is a rather small one. Here's that man, Jack Fleck, an obscure municipal course pro from Davenport, Iowa, and that chance is still slim. He needs a birdie to tie, but he hits a beautiful shot from the rough, hole high and only 8 feet away. His whole future depends on this one. He strokes it perfectly, and it's in to tie the great Hogan for the title. And you can see now the strain Fleck has been feeling. From out of nowhere, a Cinderella man has bobbed up to challenge mighty Hogan as the top man in American golf. Next day, the climax, an 18-hole playoff for the crown. And here's Hogan, considered a sure winner in any man-to-man duel. Now for the man few sports fans knew a week ago, Jack Fleck. Now, after 9 holes, Hogan is 2 strokes down to Fleck as he holes out on the 10th. And here's Fleck. He has a long one of about 20 feet. He rolls it in as if it had eyes, and now he leads by 3 shots. Now at the 18th, Hogan has made up 2 of those shots and trails by only 1, but he is hooked into the rough, and twice he fails to smash it out. Hogan is really beaten now, but with that bulldog spirit for which he is famous, he eases his 30-foot putt right into the cup. Fleck has the title in his pocket. He sends a nice putt up next to the cup, and then without hurrying or wasting time, he taps it in. He beats Hogan 69-72, and from obscurity, he springs into fame as the Open Golf King of the United States.
Earlier that week, someone suggested to you that you pray for victory, and you said, I don't want to pray for victory. And then it was suggested that you pray for the power to compete, which you felt was appropriate, and so you made that prayer. Tell me how the prayer was answered on the Saturday morning before you left for the golf course.
Well, I had a feeling of having good thoughts about the spiritual guidance that I was having. I may not have been aware of that too much when I was playing in the first 2 rounds, but some of the shots that I played and some of the recoveries and finding the ball in the only fairway bunker there was on the 6th hole. So I actually, when I finished and had the presentations behind the 18th green on the 8th hole at the presentation, the very first things I said, I thank God for the power and the strength to compete. And that was the thing that I was praying for. And the helpful of that was The Student Prince by Mary Alonzo, which I carried with me, the record, and him singing, which is in the Student Prince, was I'll Walk with God. That helped me on some of the fairways and some of the places on the golf course.
But didn't you, on the Saturday morning before you left your hotel room, the Saturday morning of the double round, the final 36 holes, actually hear a voice come out of your mirror in the bathroom and say to you, you're going to win the U.S. Open, Jack Fleck?
Yes, Peter, that did happen. And it came out and it said, Jack, you're going to win the Open. And I looked around and got goosebumps, and I knew there was nobody in the room, but as I turned to shave again, it came out the second time. But I don't think that had direct effect. When I went out to play golf on that playoff, I'm sure that the spiritual guidance was there, see, but I didn't keep that in my mind. I was not aware when I was playing what came out of that mirror. I had to just play golf. I was mentally tough and mentally strong. I'd been preparing, going on the tour for 2 years to see if I could acquire that. As a matter of fact, my late wife, or Craig's mother, said to me a number of times, and I said, I hope I could play winning championship golf before Ben Hogan and Sam Snead retires. Isn't it relative that I happened to win over Ben Hogan in the playoff, and Sam Snead was 5 shots back?
In those 2 years that you gave yourself to prove yourself on tour, which didn't start till you were in your early 30s, you played nearly 50 events up to the point of the Open, didn't win any, and had total prize money of $7,000 and change for those approximate 50 events. Was that enough to make ends meet?
Well, Peter, you have to remember that I still had 2 public courses, and we had a home and my child, and had an automobile. I wasn't destitute like a lot of people thought I was, but actually it was tough going in those days. You didn't make a lot of money on the tour. If you remember, I have the record books from 49 through 69. The only PGA record books that's available. Even the commissioner didn't have it. He wanted to get it from me. But we didn't play for that kind of money back then. We played for $1,500 total purse. Went up to $3,000 one winter tour. The LA Open and Houston Open. Why, that was big money. And so there was only 15, 18 money places. So I remember in San Diego Open, where I won $13, tied for last place, $13.75, paid the caddy $25.50.
Sports writer Dan Jenkins, who grew up in Fort Worth and has always had a worship for Ben Hogan, wrote some things after the conclusion of that tournament that you felt suggested that you had been lucky, that you were ricocheting balls off trees into the hole and through the clown's nose and over the windmill, and that you one-putted every green as Hogan staggered around 3-putting. You've been angry for 44 years about the way that Mr. Jenkins characterized your victory. Did you ever confront him?
Never have, Peter. Never had an occasion to meet Mr. Jenkins. The sad thing about it, Peter, is I don't understand why he would do it that way. Ben Hogan would not have done that. He would never have said it. Ben Hogan's always treated me very well every time I've played with him or been in practice rounds down at Colonial and on the telephones all the way through it. I don't know why he made it this way. He had to dream up something with this lie. I call it the biggest lie in golf history. On the 3rd hole, he had written that Ben Hogan, of course, hit a beautiful shot to the 3rd hole, par 3, 210 or 12 yards down there, and the pin was way back. And he said that I got up and duck hooked it into this bunker to the left and just barely got it out with a poor trap onto the edge of the green. And as I got out of the trap, it said that I will try to speed up my play and improve my play, Mr. Hogan. And Mr. Hogan said, that's all right, Jack. We're in no hurry. And that was supposed to relax me and make me play better and not afraid of Ben Hogan. I don't know where they dream up these stories.
Why didn't you ask him? It's 44 years later. You've thought about this every single day. I've never talked to you when you haven't raised the subject almost immediately. Why didn't you pick up the phone, or why don't you pick up the phone and have the conversation that you've been having inside your head for 44 years with him?
Well, I don't think that was right for me to do that, Peter. I didn't have any occasion to know Dan Jenkins any time throughout my life, so he didn't approach me. I had many good writers, wrote wonderful stories. I had writers that followed me around in practice round. But at any rate, I don't have the feeling that I should have called. I did write to the Golf Digest once about it, and there was nothing ever done about it in the Golf Digest.
We're going to take a short break, Jack. We'll come back and we will pick this up. Stay with us.
Is that all right?
I think the greatest disappointment I've ever had in a playoff was when Fleck beat me in San Francisco for the Open. And it seemed like it was a greater disappointment to me because I was positive that I'd won the tournament by 3 shots. And I believe at that time he had 4 holes to play, and he needed to birdie 2 of the 4 holes and par the other 2. Jack Fleck did that, and he had to play wonderful golf to do it. And as you know, we had the playoff the next day. I recall him having me 2 shots going to the 17th hole. And I picked up a shot on 17. Then I hit my tee shot to the left in knee-high grass, taking a double bogey, and of course he parred and beat me by 3 shots. It was a great disappointment to me in that I've been trying for years to win my 5th Open, and that was as close as I've gotten, and it might be that that's as close as I'll ever get.
Jack, we have a young man, 15-year-old Sean, who wants to ask you a question right over there. Go ahead, Sean.
Hi, Mr. Fleck. This is Sean Lyons. I'm just wondering what you thought about Hogan when you played with him.
Well, I'll tell you, I met Ben Hogan down at his factory, and he furnished me my set of clubs that he built for me. And as a matter of fact, they had 2 wedges he brought out to the tournament. So Ben's always been very nice to me. Some people might not have thought that way, but I enjoyed playing with Ben Hogan. I don't think I was afraid of Ben Hogan. The man that I was afraid of would be myself. I had to compete and play against the golf course, and he was my opponent in that playoff.
Did you feel the tee to green, you were the better man that day? I mean, history tells us that you drove it straighter, drove it longer, and were rarely in trouble during the whole week, but particularly in the playoff when, again, for the 3rd time, you broke 70.
Well, Peter, I like the golf course very much. I wrote to the late John O'Donnell, Davenport Democrat sports editor, that on Sunday before, Saturday or Sunday before, he ought to get the publisher to get him out there. It's a great golf course, and that only certain players are going to play this golf course well, because the climatic conditions and the wetness and the dampness of San Francisco makes the golf course play very long, and the wet rough. It's the heaviest rough they've ever had. I played 11 Opens after that, and there's no rough like that whatsoever as there was in 1955. The scores proved it. And I liked the golf course, and because you could drive it, and you had to iron it, great bunkering, smaller greens, and the golf course was, I fell in love with it.
And to evidence what you just said about its difficulty, the average score for the week was in excess of 78 strokes around. 11 years later, the Open returns to Olympic, and the United States Golf Association gives Ben Hogan an exemption to play. Your 10-year exemption had, of course, just run out, having won in 1955. Did you resent the fact that you were forced to qualify and that Hogan was given an exemption? Didn't you feel that at least you should have gotten one too?
Well, Peter, that's been questioned many times, but when that happened and they gave the exemption to Ben Hogan, I was a club pro in Chicago area at that time, and I was on for 2 days, practically, as soon as I get off a long distance from sport writers all across this country, finding out or wanting me to say something about that, why I wasn't invited as the winner and Ben Hogan was. And I just told them all, the USGA runs the US Open. It's their toy. They can play it any way they wish. If they wanted to invite Ben, okay. But they were hoping that I would be resentful and make big statements against his invitation, and I was not against his invitation.
Not too long ago, you sold the medal that you won for the championship because you needed the money. And Hogan was upset that you had sold the medal. What was your reaction to his reaction?
Well, I had heard that from a friend of mine that said it was there, and asked him at Fort Worth at the time. And, well, I don't know. No two people are alike in this world, and the outlook on the medal is very important, and Ben has 4 of them, so that's very important. He has the one that was not official at Hail America, but at the time we were building the golf course, and I needed some money, did not want to take any loans against the property or anything else, so I sold the medal, and the Olympic Club was actually after it. They went to Boston, the president of the club and the general manager, but they didn't acquire it. Somebody outbid them.
Why didn't you go back last year to Olympic?
Well, I was never invited. I was not invited by the USGA. I was not invited by the Olympic Club. I think the Olympic Club might have been resentful that I didn't donate the golf clubs to them. I don't know, Peter. I have no way of knowing. I know there were a number of promoters that wanted to have me go out for the big corporations and whatnot, but they were unable to make that gel.
Did you watch it?
Oh, yes, I watched the U.S. Open very closely.
Do you think the course played as tough last year as it did in '55 when Hogan said it was the toughest U.S. Open course he ever played and therefore his favorite U.S. Open course, despite the fact that you beat him?
Well, there's no doubt about it. I watched it, and as a matter of fact, Payne Stewart, who I thought might win that tournament, he knocked it out of the rough on 17 and knocked it on the green and made birdie. No one got home on that golf course. In '55, it was 35, 40 yards further back, and it was damp and overcast. It was a much tougher golf course, and the rough was very, very heavy and very, very difficult.
Actually, one man did get home in 2 on 17 in the '55 Open at Olympic. You, in the last round. You hit a wood onto the green, and you missed your birdie putt, and you missed it by a whisker. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Okay, Peter.
True.